Good evening and welcome to the first online live transmission of the Mormon Yeshiva. Tonight's presentation is going to be called The Great and Marvelous Book of Mormon, an Israelite Masterpiece. Before we begin, here's our Fair Use Act disclaimer. So, the reality is the Book of Mormon is an ancient covenant record written and preserved by a remnant of the house of Israel to come forth to a remnant of their posterity in a future time to prepare them for the great and marvelous work to come forth by the hand of God. Knowing that their future posterity here in America would be destroyed and then later scattered by the hand of the Gentiles, God, through his prophets here in the Americas, prepared this record. This record, along with the covenant land grant that we call America, is the foundation upon which their scattered posterity and all those who associate themselves with them could once again be restored as a covenant-keeping body of the house of Israel. Unfortunately, we're actually witnessing a falling away by many from a belief in the Book of Mormon at a time when its teachings could provide us with prophetic and practical instruction for the events that we're witnessing in America now. There are many who oppose the Book of Mormon and the idea of a restoration because it does not conform to their Catholic or Protestant traditions. In other words, they approach the Book of Mormon from a modern Christian paradigm. However, the Book of Mormon is a Jewish Israelite book written by the hand of Lehi, by the descendants of Lehi and his family, who were all Jews, meaning that they were occupants of the southern kingdom of Judah just prior to the Babylonian Captivity. As Nephi said, I have charity for the Jew. I say Jew because I mean them from whence I came. 2 Nephi 33 verse 8. A Jewish document? Yes, the writers of the Book of Mormon were Jews, or rather citizens and descendants of the southern kingdom of Israel. As such, the records contain many guiding truths and covenants and covenant betrothal gifts from God to his people, they were meant to establish them in the land and prepare them for his coming in glory. The Book of Mormon is not the property of any religion, but is the birthright of the heirs of the remnants of Israel for whom this record was intended. As the writers were Jewish prophets and their descendants who were taught the knowledge of Israel and its ancient prophetic tradition, the record contains the foundational knowledge by which a modern remnant of Jacob, believing Jews, and those believing Gentiles may once again be established as a righteous and covenant people before God on this covenant land grant called America. So to understand the nature and the purpose of the Book of Mormon, we need to understand the palette of paint that is meant to, the language that it uses, and how it draws things together. See, Hebrew as a language has ancient roots it shares with its sister tongues, Aramaic and Arabic. The alphabet consists of 22 letters, with many books being written over the centuries about them. Unlike our English American alphabet, Hebrew letters contain deeper meanings meant to be understood at different levels, based on context and form. In some traditions, it is said that the letters and the words can be understood from 10, but different and also related dimensions. In our Western culture, our language is often used to define things in a very concrete way. In Hebrew, however, words can have concrete meanings and can also serve as the components or colors used to paint pictures on a canvas. These word pictures are meant to convey literal meanings, allegorical meanings, traditional and theological teachings, and deeper meanings associated with the counsel of heaven and the things of the eternal worlds, the sod level of meaning. Unlike the modern English language and alphabet that often focuses solely on the concrete meanings of words, Hebrew is inclusive of these other dimensions, with all the meanings, definitions being experienced in relation to each other. Just as each person experiences a piece of artwork, both concretely, objectively, abstractly, and emotionally, so too are the word pictures that are constructed in the Hebrew meant to be experienced. Imagine looking upon the masterpiece of the Last Supper. Concretely, we see an image meant to literally portray the Last Supper of Christ. Objectively, we may find ourselves focusing on the different images that compose the painting. Abstractly, we may see hidden meanings woven into the painting by the artist. And emotionally, we may be drawn to experience a connection to the Messiah and his disciples during this epic event. Which perspective is the right one? Well, the answer, all of them. So the Book of Mormon, as a Hebrew document, is no different. A child who reads the record may experience the literal stories of Nephi obtaining the brass plates from the Laban, or the story of Helaman and his stripling warriors. An older person may experience the allegorical teachings contained in the record of those literal stories. There are those who may experience the record in relation to other ancient teachings of Israelite prophets, sages, and history. And there are those who may peer through the windows of heaven into the upper worlds through those same stories. Which one of them is the right way to relate to the record? The answer? All of them. As we study and contemplate the Book of Mormon as a Hebrew Israelite text, we literally grow with the language. It changes us mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It is taught in the Israelite schools of the prophetic that as one reads the words of the scriptures, they become infused with the same spirit that infused the prophet that wrote those words, a process called feasting on the word. In doing so, we not only partake of the nourishing fruit of the Spirit of God, but we also ingest the seeds of that fruit, whereby we as a tree produce the same fruit. Hebrew words are constructed from parent letters and root words that often appear as different expressions, but share an underlying relationship meant to take you from the image of, say, a black and white TV to a widescreen high-definition TV with surround sound. These root words are often neutral in their meaning until they have been read in the context of the record or speech they are given in. In other words, the words alone are like the shell of our physical body without the animating life of the Spirit. When the life of the Spirit or the light of God is infused into these vessels from the varying dimensions, we experience the life in this world as it comes from above. This light is the life of God in its many expressions of the spiritual gifts of God. So let's take a look, for example, at just one of these words, kimora, a tapestry of many colors. So remember, in Hebrew, not only do words mean things, but parts of words mean things. Letters mean things. And letter combinations may reveal things both past, present, and future. So let's take a look at and examine the word kimora. I've always maintained that many of the words that appear, quote, strange to us in the record of the Book of Mormon are actually Hebrew word constructs. In other words, a word such as coriantumr, while we may view it as a name that may actually be a Hebrew word construct designed to carry with it many multiple meanings depending on the context. The same can be said of the word kimora. Kimora. So concretely, it was the last place it was the place of the last battle of the Nephites, the place where Moroni deposited the plates. It's the place where Joseph Smith, a Gentile, retrieved the plates. It's composed of the Hebrew letters Kuf, Mem, Resh, and He. Kum means to rise up, stand up, something that rises up like a hill or a mountain that rises high above the ground. Ur, flame or light, the verb to give light or shine. Ah, a short form of Yah, meaning of God or from God. So from these components, we could distill a meaning such as the rising light of Yah, or God, or the shining hill of Yah, or the shining hill of God. Now, the artist or prophet who painted the pictures uses the parts of the word like the colors of an artist's palette to help us to see the depth in his picture. The parent letters and roots may also give us insight into other things, as well as as we combine the Hebrew letters to confirm and form additional elements of the picture. So let's take a look at some of these additional elements that arise from examining the root letters of the word Gomorrah. Kuf mem, to arise, stand up, rise up, like a hill or mountain that rises high above the ground. Kuf resh, a place of gathering, to gather men, a coming together of people. Kuf he, something sealed or bound up, an accumulation of things or objects. Mem resh, headwaters, something that is bitter, a place of waters. Mem he, something not known or in question, marrow in the bone. Mem kaf, something that rots, smells, shriveled dried or shriveled like a grape. Resh he, a flowing of words, a flowing of water to quench thirst. Resh kuf, to draw out, a grassy area. Resh min, high, exalted, lifted up. So in addition to concrete and abstract meanings, there are also relational meanings that are derived from the numeric value of the word. So kuf, 100. Mem shares the value of 40. Resh carries the value of 300. He carries the value of 5 and totals 445. The number 445 in Hebrew is equated with the light of wisdom, the creation, a doorway, or insight and prophecy. So let's examine some of these, the word Gomorrah, and let's try to get closer to see what the picture they're trying to paint for us. So considering the meanings of some of the parent roots and relational associations found in Hebrew, let's now examine the picture of Gomorrah being painted in the Book of Mormon, where the word Gomorrah is first mentioned. Quote, "And I, Mormon, wrote an epistle unto the king of the Lamanites, and desired of him that he would grant unto us that we might gather together our people unto the land of Gomorrah, by a hill which was called Gomorrah, and there we could give them battle. And it came to pass that the king of the Lamanites did grant unto us the thing which I desired. And it came to pass that we did march forth to the land of Gomorrah, and we did pitch our tents around about the hill Gomorrah. And it was in a land of many waters, rivers, and fountains. And here we had hoped to gain advantage over the Lamanites. And when 384 years had passed away, we had gathered in all the remainder of our people unto the land of Gomorrah." So, and it came to pass that when we had gathered in all our people in the one land of Gomorrah, behold, I, Mormon, began to be old, and knowing it to be the last struggle of my people, and having been commanded of the Lord, that I should not suffer the records which had been handed down by our fathers, which were sacred, to fall into the hand of the Lamanites, for the Lamanites would destroy them. Therefore I made this record out of the plates of Nephi, and hid up in the hill Gomorrah all the records which had been entrusted to me by the hand of the Lord, save it were these few plates which I gave unto my son Moroni. Moroni 6:2-6. So if we start looking at these things a little more closely, we can see the pixels of the word Gomorrah start to come together to form a picture. So from this scripture, we can see the picturesque language of the Book of Mormon drawing on its Hebrew/Jewish roots. Gomorrah was a hill, kuf mem, to rise, stand up, rising up like a hill or mountain that rises above the ground. Harar, mountain. Reshmim, high, exalted, lifted up. Gomorrah was a place of battle. Nakah, to smite, to strike, or slaughter or conquer. These are relationships that these words draw together in the Hebrew language. Gomorrah was a land of many waters, rivers, and fountains. Memresh, headwaters, something that is also bitter, a place of waters. Gomorrah was the place where the plates or records were deposited. Kufay, something sealed or bound up, an accumulation of objects or things. Things that are beaten like a hammered work of gold, such as in Exodus 25:18. Gomorrah was the place where we see the gathering or coming together of people, whether it be Mormon gathering his people to the hill, the last battle of the Nephites and Lamanites, or the last battle of the Jaredites, Coriantumr versus Shez. Kufresh, a place of gathering, to gather men, a coming together of people. Again, what do we hear? Glad tidings from Gomorrah. Moroni, an angel from heaven, declaring the fulfillment of the prophets, the book to be revealed. Todah, thanksgiving, praise, good tidings. These are relational meanings to the word Gomorrah. The word more or morah can mean a teacher or the hill of teaching. It is also a word for one of the priestly lines of Aaron, which later came to be used to refer to a non-Israelite priest. And most likely is where we get the connection in the Book of Mormon of Jacob or others being a priest or teacher. A kumore as a teacher, and a kumore as a priest, and then of course a teacher, a more. So it's in a sense like a play on words. So what is the meaning of Gomorrah? Well, the answer is they are all part of a picture that was meant to be viewed and explored from the various Israelite levels of interpretation, and from the vantage points of both the writer, the reader, and heaven. For me, I like the distilled meaning of the rising light of Yah, God, or the shining hill of Yah, God, as either evokes an image of the artist's purpose in the coming forth of the Book of Mormon and its message to the world. Whether we examine the pixel or the whole picture, we grow in our understanding and depth of perception. So in other words, what is the meaning of Gomorrah? Well, Gomorrah is a picture. It can be a hill of teaching. It can be the hill of the rising light of Yah. It could be the hill of a non-Israelite priest coming to retrieve a record. It could be a hill describing a last battle, because the word itself contains the elements of all of this much larger picture that these particular prophets drew from. So, if you have the time, please join us over at themormonyeshiva.blogspot.com, and if you're interested in any other articles, please take a look around. And for those who are looking for further resources, here's some additional resources you might want to check out to help you in your own studies. Thank you, and have a good evening.